Hey everyone, Angelo here, Hollywood filmmaker, greatest screenwriter in the history of the world, recovering hobo. It's been a few weeks since my last video, like 2 weeks. I'm really busy screenwriting. I'm between classes right now for a few months, actually. This is the first time I've had a break like this between classes in a long time. I've been in these writing classes, these workshops that have been progressing. So it's all part of one series of workshops for the last like 2 years or over 2 years. Yeah, over 2 years, like about 2.5 years. And I finally have a break. I've learned so much in this class, these series of classes. I've been doing these drills over and over, hours and hours a day for like 2.5 years now. And so I've been really eager to finally write one of my own screenplays. And that's what I've been doing. I've just been doing it almost nonstop. Constantly writing. I find myself alternating between writing in a notebook or a series of notebooks, because I keep filling up notebooks, and writing in a Word document, or more accurately a WPS writer document. It uses the same file type as Microsoft Word, but it's free. And it's been great. It's a great experience. Like, I'm actually, like, I feel so confident now just as a person when I'm doing this thing that I want to. And it's interesting writing in notebooks, because what I'll do is I'll go to a cafe or just write at home in the notebooks or on my lunch break, and then I'll type it up in my Word document and notes, but I'll elaborate on it. So at any given time, it's like there are two different planes of my writing going on, like two different directions. I'm writing down stuff, and then I'll transcribe it to the computer, but then I'll add more ideas as I get to it. So it's like there are two of me writing at two different times that are always helping me. And also, I just really enjoy writing in a notebook. It's a lot of fun, and I'd like to keep one on me, especially in case I get ideas while I'm out. But I've just been writing a lot lately, and so I haven't really had time to make videos, because I'm like, this is the time. Now's to do it. I probably won't have another class until at least March. And I want to have as many ready-to-go screenplays as I can right now. I won't say what the screenplay's about. It's too early. I never like talking about my screenplays, especially when they're this early. And it's still changing so much. I've literally got well over like 100 pages of notes on this, and now I can say they're really productive notes. Whereas before, I would just tread water barely for years and years writing. Although I can see, looking back, how it's like I was treading a little better and going a little better each time. And by the time like I'd be finished several drafts of a screenplay, I could see, not only I could see some improvement in what I wrote, but also I could see how much more skilled I am now, and how clearly I can detect problems in the screenplay, things that won't get the audience's interest, that don't make the story more exciting, that don't like raise the stakes of the story or escalate our own interest in it. And then I started taking the classes, and now I'm just analyzing that stuff even more clearly, drawing influences from anywhere I can, screenplays, novels. I read finally the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy trilogy, or the Carla trilogy from John le Carré, which is amazing. I want to read the whole thing again, because really, the second one, The Honorable Schoolboy, first of all, it feels like 100 pages too long. Second of all, I had no idea what the significance of the person they were after was. I really didn't understand. And I read like a Wikipedia summary of it. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's why they were after him. Because I couldn't really, I don't know, something didn't click for me. It was partly context, culturally, the British English, John le Carré's terse British English especially. Finally, in Honorable Schoolboy, he actually gives somewhat of a glossary to explain some of the terms that he didn't explain in the first one, who the janitors are. He explains the lamplighters, I think. He explains something else, but like the janitors and the watchers or the seers or whatever, it's all spy terms for people who work at the circus that I literally thought he meant janitors for a while, at least through Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And Smiley's people is great. That's where I kind of, first of all, the beginning just jumps out at you with interest. And this is the one where it's like, by now, it felt like he had more clarity in his writing, and I had more ability to have clarity to understand this. And I love the moral weight that comes down on the characters in it as they're doing things they don't like to do, ostensibly for their country, for their mission, for their ego, for their friends. That's for a victory that's very bitterly earned and not really much of a victory. It's like all you're doing is trying to be sort of more ruthless than the enemy, which in these stories are either Russian spies or spies who are kind of, yeah, it's Russian spies, basically. I was going to say, well, there's the Honorable Schoolboy takes place largely in Hong Kong, but it's dealing with a Russian spy as well. And I'm just looking forward to doing so much. Like, it's so, I don't even know how to describe it. I realize words are inadequate to describe what it feels like to be writing. And of course, I want to keep pushing myself every time now. Like, I'm so much more confident in a sense, not that like I feel superior to anything. It's a process. If I don't engage in it, I don't feel confident. I don't feel good about what I do. But I realize every time I feel like I'm getting to the limits of my abilities, whereas before I would be in despair. I'm like, I don't know how I'll write anything else. Now I'm like, oh, good. This means I'm pushing myself to the very edge of my writing abilities. And usually by the next day, whatever it is I was trying to break through, I'll be able to break through and have so much more to add to it. So I'm like, oh, this is amazing. It's this game of trust with myself where I'm never sure if I can pull this thing off. And I always have to trust that I will. So it's so exciting. I always feel like just on the precipice of my ability to write a story and craft it. And I'm like, how am I going to link these disparate elements together? How am I going to make it exciting and compelling? How am I going to funnel everything through this like one perfect, like I call it like creating a channel, like a divot in the ground or something that everything is going to fit through, almost like utilities. Like you got to fit the gas and electricity through there. And is that pretty much it? I don't know what else you run in utilities. Gas, electricity, water. Let's try and cut down on the gas. Let's get cleaner energy, but cleaner cooking sources. But it's like trying to work at multiple different parts to figure out like what's the perfect vehicle for this story, what's the perfect kind of like road or channel to funnel it through, who are the perfect characters that are going to reflect on the story world and the story world's going to reflect on them, and you know, what parts of myself am I drawing from. I can't say a lot of this stuff is fairly autobiographical. So if you stay with me for a few years on this channel, and if you've seen my videos, you'll see the parts of it that I sort of pulled. I consider it like pulling taffy apart almost, or some like stretching these things apart to find the most extreme opposite ingredients, the most elemental things like on the atomic level, and figure out how to smash them together for these stories to create things that like you can't believe, that are so compelling and meaningful and exciting and fun and provocative. And they aren't, when you finish watching the movie's not done with you. I love movies like that. I've watched recently, what did I see? Let me check my movie journal. I haven't been putting everything in my movie journal lately that I've been watching, but let me see if I wrote anything noteworthy I want to recommend. Earth, 1930 Russian film. It's actually really good, I think. I love movies that show close-ups of people's faces. Very touching. It's a propaganda film meant to get people to want to give over their farmland to the Russian government. And it's a little bit messy, but I really admire that. This like technology that was so primitive at the time, with people with such little means to make it, and they just like went all out for it. I love that. It's so easy to get me to feel strongly about something when you're just showing people's faces. And you could see the beginnings of film there. It's still it was still very early into film history. The Justice of Bunny King, New Zealand film, that was really good. What else? I've mentioned this, but Symphony for a Massacre, 1963 French noir, really good. Yeah. There's a bunch of free movies on YouTube now I want to watch. What did they have? The Grand Budapest Hotel, which I loved. Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 one. What else did they have on there that I noticed? Was it a detective movie? Was it... What was it? I don't even remember. Let's find one more. The Lavender Hill Mob, which Alec Guinness was in. His performance is so brilliant. And he played George Smiley from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy in the British miniseries Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and then Smiley's People. He is brilliant in it. The story alternates from great and exciting and grand to really sloppy and silly to then electrifying and grand, and then it's admirable because I can see where the writers struggle to connect these different parts of the story, these different elements. And I'm like, oh, this is a normal struggle every writer has, because I could see where it faltered pretty clearly, and where it failed to get these characters into compelling situations that they need to keep going through. And I'm like, oh, they struggled with this. They didn't know how to work it out. Maybe they thought they figured it out, or maybe they didn't, and they were just stuck with what they had. But I'm like, oh, good. So everything I'm struggling through is exactly what writers struggle through. So good. I'm not going to settle for anything that isn't perfectly clear and completely powerful and impactful. And I can't find many other movies. Sometimes I haven't had time. I just haven't had time to write all of my movie journal notes. And a lot of times I'm at the point where I basically am not sure how much. When I watch a movie now, I'll try and find them online. If I'm not really into it, or if I see problems that are annoying me, sometimes I will stick all the way through. Like the Lavender Hill Mob, I was glad to stick through it. The ending is dynamite. It was so much fun and powerful. The very, very ending, the very last shot, I was cracking up and laughing. But there are other movies I'm like, this is supposed to be a classic, or it's really good or whatever, but I'll watch a few minutes, I'm like, I can't take it. I don't know how film critics do it, but I'm not a film critic. I cannot take it. It is so painful if I watch a movie and I can see it's faltering, or I just don't like the script, or it's not shot well. I'm like, this is too painful. Even if it's like kind of good, and it depends on my mood sometimes too. I'm like, I just cannot watch this, even if it's kind of good. I only want to see stuff that's either great, or it doesn't have to be great. It can be like the Lavender Hill Mob, very inspiring for its great moments, even when it falters. I've been talking to my mom a lot. She's doing really well. She really wants to visit LA now. Like, she sees I'm doing well. I'm excited about my writing. And we just don't know. It's hard to schedule, and really, I don't know. She's dealing with a bunch of stuff. Nothing terrible or anything. It just, she's always busy. I'm busy too. I'm like, well, if you come, during a regular week, I don't necessarily know if I'll be available that much. Living here in West LA, by the way, so at some point I want to move. I think, like, the neighborhood here, it has so much potential to be better, and instead it's this car-infested mess. That's all I'll say. And I want to make videos more. Man, I barely have time. I just barely have freaking time. Like, I'm trying to, like, write, like, every day. I need to get this done for my job. I may have a note here up on the wall, make a video about wage slavery and how revering corporations makes it easier for employers to exploit people and abuse them. That's my main message there, is I'm always looking with an eye towards how to liberate workers from wage exploitation, how to get the workers to own the workplace, because I think fundamentally about the experiences a lot of people have, including myself, in a difficult situation with jobs. And when I see politicians, Democrats do this, Republicans really do this, where they lament, they complain, they moan, they chide, they whine that people don't want to work, they're too lazy, essentially implying they don't want to prove their worth, like they don't want to establish their merit before us, because they'd rather be home collecting unemployment, because unemployment pays a lot and they don't want to go work. I'm like, well, how convenient for the employers. If people don't have a social safety net, if people revere employers, like, you're putting all this scrutiny on workers, but none on the employers, what does that mean for the people who get to become employers? They can easily skate away with your money, your time, your well-being, because they can abuse you and exploit you, because they always know they have this cudgel in front of you. When they're holding this wage in front of you, what's behind it? Your housing, your transportation, your health care, if, Frank, a lot of people don't get that. Your food, which a lot of us can't even get good food. I've been shopping a lot of Trader Joe's lately. I used to think it was just this rich place you couldn't really afford stuff. It's actually, a lot of stuff's really cheap there. Like, it has the cheapest sunscreen I've ever bought. I don't know why I bothered buying from CVS before. But they don't have floss, though. And but I really appreciate, too, they don't have many brands there. I'm like, what's the point of all this capitalist waste? This just sheer waste, extracting poison out of the ground, both for the environment and for our bodies, and to load up the aisles with drinks and candies with 50 grams of sugar in them, 60 grams of sugar. If you don't know what that looks like, I measure my food so with a food scale. So I'll put in like 40 grams of oatmeal in my breakfast, about 35 or 40 grams of protein powder, and 10 to 15 grams of flaxseed. Just 10 grams of flaxseed, or to change it out for sugar, is like, you can fit it basically fit in the palm of my hand, and maybe I'd have to have two hands like this to keep it all from going over. That's just poison going through your body. And we can make for healthy, affordable food options for everybody if we didn't have this corporate hellscape that's grinding us out, that's reaping profits for the executives while laying off workers, while cutting their shifts, while putting them in the position where, again, there's no safety net, because politicians want people to be scared of losing their jobs because they're going to end up homeless, like I was. Now, I went homeless a different way, but people know they're going to lose their housing. And by the way, who becomes landlords? Is it just respectable people, people who want to provide quality housing, or is it people who want free money and often don't want to fix things and want to exploit you personally, emotionally abuse you, financially exploit you, sexually abuse you? My first landlord did that. He sexually harassed me when I lived with him. He was creepy as all hell. William Wagner, rest in piss. A Baptist pastor from Falls Church, Virginia, somehow lived to, I forget how old he was, 94 or something. He asked if he could get in the shower with me, left out hand-drawn pornography for me to find. It was so disgusting. And that was my first landlord. And these guys, he was planning this. He was 89 years old at the time. He knew to do this, to expect this. He wanted this. And landlords know they can do this stuff. And employers, I mean, how much of that sexual harassment happens at work? How much abuse and exploitation, and how much of it gets reported? Very little. Very little discrimination gets reported. Because what's the point? Everything's weighted on the side of corporations. They essentially write the laws. They buy the politicians. It's our system that we have, where you're facing a world of trouble and pain if you try and come forward about something you've gone through at work that you know is troublesome, because anything you go to with them, they know makes you a liability. Oh, you have this complaint. And unfortunately for them, it's protected speech. So now anything that looks like it's potential retaliation against you, even unintentional, could be a lawsuit for them. And so what's the better alternative? Just shuffle you off. Just push you out of the company. Just cut you out of assignments. Just sabotage your job. And a lot of people know this and experience this. And what kind of culture does it create? It creates one of silence and creates a chilling effect. Somebody wrote, I don't know who wrote it, there's an emergency number to call if someone steals your food. But if you're hungry, there's no emergency number to call. Now, why is that? Why is that the police protect the capital interests, the owners, the exploiters? How worth it is it to prosecute people for petty crimes like shoplifting or stealing food? I say, if people need food that bad, if they need baby formula, if they need clothes, whatever, that's where the government should step in and provide these things for people. We talk about how efficient capital is. It makes your iPhone. Aren't you glad there's slave labor that creates your overpriced iPhone? This over-engineered piece of junk that's going to break down in a year or two and that we can barely repair because Apple doesn't want us to be able to repair it? Isn't that great? There's no better way of making communication devices. That's it. Be grateful. All right, let me go lick, what's his name? The guy who runs Apple. And now I can't remember because all I remember in my head is Donald Trump calling him Tim Apple. And now I just forget his actual name. It's just like whatever you're CEO of, that company's your last name. John Ledger was the CEO of T-Mobile, John Mobile. What else? What other CEOs? I don't know. Yeah, I seriously, that's all I think of is Trump calling him Tim Apple. But I think every time, you know, things are going better for me, of what use is it for me to be living better if everyone else isn't better off? If everyone else isn't being uplifted? I'm not the kind of person that just wants to get myself better off if other people can't be. That's not really getting better off to me. I leave that kind of pathetic attitude to the exploiters, the bootlickers, capitalists, people who believe that the way money is distributed now is equivalent to how worthy you are of participating in society, of having free time, of having health care, mental health care, dental care. Why that's not considered medical care, health insurance, I don't know. Of having a safe place to stay, of not having to worry about where you're going to live if you're living in an abusive situation, as I have, or if you're living in a physically abusive situation where someone's a danger to you. But what do you do? Like, if you can't leave, if you're trapped there, if you know you've got this thing hanging over you. So anyway, I can't emphasize it enough. This is just, I don't like spinning out about this stuff. I'm trying to be well, trying not to, you know, fixate on this stuff. There's so much chauvinism and ignorance and about how basically jobs work and the world works and how we think landlords are just worthy. Don't you know they make money by giving housing? That's good. That's good. It's like, yeah, but they shouldn't be in a position to stand between you and housing and exploit people. I already know that basic idea of landlord make money good. I want make money too. And then how it chafes their diaper rash when I tell bootlickers that we can have much better systems where landlords aren't able to exploit people, and Elon and Jeff Bezos aren't able to, and the workers actually own the workplace and get the profits that they reap for the company. And they're like, no, it makes me upset. I need the enzymes from mama's milk to comfort me. Mama, give me your tit. That's what the bootlickers do. That's literally what they do. They just scream like that. Mama, I sheathe you a tit. I need milk to soothe my nerves. Somebody criticized a billionaire. Anyways, I'll have movies about that stuff too. But again, not talking about what movies I'm writing now, because it's just it's so unpleasant. Anytime I try and talk about it, who gives a shit? But doing well, exercising a lot, getting up early. Got this chair, I just found it on the street, basically. This is really comfortable. It's got this thing, that's what I need. To be able to, like, not hunch my, like, head forward while I'm sitting. It's like a gamer chair, I guess. Perfectly good chair. I guess someone got an even better one. And got this art from Venice Beach, that from Venice Beach, that from Venice Beach, that from Chinatown. That someone gave me free. Been riding my bike a lot, went to Ciclavia, rollerblading. Want to do even more of that, but lately I'm just like, no, I'm not going to go out as much. I'm going to write. And it's funny. I'm writing in cafes now, which gets expensive quick, but I appreciate being able to write out. I don't like bringing my laptop. It's too, I need the laptop stand and the keyboard, external keyboard. Otherwise, I'm hunched over. It hurts my neck. Gives me shoulder impingements. So I just bring a notebook and write. But maybe I'll do that today. I don't know, because I go a little stir crazy if I'm inside a lot. But the weather's great here in LA. I want things to be as good for me as good for other people as they are for me. And I know my biggest challenges are coming. So I'm always trying to apply more on myself, meaning more resistance, more pressure, more focus, more urgency, so that I don't become complacent. And so I stay sharp, and I'm always pushing myself to the edges of my abilities in writing, my workouts, trying to diet right, experimenting with different foods, restricting my diet, and then knowing when to go higher on my diet when I want to bulk up, or even just have sort of a high day where it spikes my metabolism if I've been cutting properly. Thankfully, I'm really getting, good at all that, and I'm trying to have a social life too. But I'm so lucky, like I can do that now, and so many people, and so much of my life I couldn't. I was basically scared to leave the house because I was so broke, I was so in debt, I was so personally miserable. I was going through so much grief, recovering from depersonalization, derealization disorder, which I didn't know I had for like 14 years. So I was in a constant either like kind of like treading water, dissociated state, kind of keeping it together, or full-blown dissociated, and I couldn't function. And the only way I can relay that to people in a way you might understand if you haven't gone through it, it's like taking edibles and getting way too high on edibles. It's a lot like that. Think about it. You can't drive. You can't really function. You got urgency and stuff. You're having all these rushing existential thoughts. You may be panicking. It's very unpleasant. That's very similar, almost exactly to what it was like for me to have DPDR acutely when I relapsed for 9 months, where I was sure I would never get better. I was 100% convinced I will grow old and sick and die this way. When I was 27 going into 28 for 9 months. I went through that and just somehow got better. Didn't know what I went through. Didn't know what happened. I'm like, well, okay, gotta go back to work now and keep living. But each time I went through these major dissociated states for like a year at a time or more, it made me better afterwards. Sometimes better just felt like a different kind of bad, but I can see I did progress in that. I became more open with people, a little more connected to my emotions, and DPDR is a way of cutting yourself off from your emotions. And it pushed me to be more, to do more, as slowly and painfully as it was. It was good for me. I needed it in a way. And I'm glad. Like, I wouldn't want like an easy existence, a soft, comfortable existence. That's just not me. I'm not going to do that. I'll always push myself really hard. That's why I get up at 3:40 in the morning. That's why I diet so hard to where I can't sleep much because my body is aching for nutrition. That's why I push myself with my writing, and that's why I always want to have have an eye on my own accountability, as far as I never want to be doing better unless everyone else is doing better. So that means I got to be well, but it just feels so. It shouldn't be that other people can't have the wellness I have because they're struggling, or because they're in war zones, or because they're in famine, or in food deserts, or they're brutalized by the police, or they can't get health care, or they live under oppression, homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, misogyny, poverty, all these things, I don't even like looking at the news. I'll just say, there's a lot of horrible stuff happening, and would like to see things improve for the climate, for people to, I can't even look at this. Just war is so stupid. I know it sounds so quaint, like, oh, the hippie. I used to be a staunch war hawk conservative, staunchly conservative, thinking any war America gets in is good, and Israel is doing the right thing too. And all it takes is just learning about stuff, seeing people as human, listening to them, not even talking, listening. Like, just making a dedicated practice of relaxing these muscles here, your vocal cords, and working these parts of yourself, your ears, and realizing people have lived experience that's valid and you have to respect them. And then going through lived experience myself that says, oh, like, yeah, poverty is a hell of a thing in this country, and misery, and not being able to get health care, and struggling to afford food, and being homeless as I was for 2.5 years, and struggling to survive, and being desperate to survive even longer than that. So anyways, I gotta get back to writing. That's just kind of what I'm thinking now. I'd love to just make fun videos too, aside from, you know, me talking like this, just reflecting. That's what I try and do a lot lately, to be very accountable to who I am and not slip on my conduct as much as possible. And it'd be great to make videos with my mom. She'll be in LA at some point. Some point. And I'm just sure it'll be when the time is right. She'll be here. She wants to, like, she sees how well I'm doing, or she hears about it when I talk to her. And and I'll leave you with this. Why don't you recommend for people and me, like some interesting or different stuff to try buying at the grocery store or Trader Joe's that's like relatively healthy. I don't want to eat super junk food. I don't drink soda. But I look at stuff at Trader Joe's. Like today I just got like Dijon mustard and whatever, some kind of hot sauce. It's kind of different. Also, I got shaving cream there that's like mango scented. I'm like, wow, that sounds really good. And the sunscreen. It's cheap. It was like $6. I'm like, damn, at CVS, most sunscreen is like at least $13. And the CVS brand one, the cream is so, like, it just stays on your face. It's hard to rub away. And so you just look like you painted your face white, basically. So that's what you get for the really cheap stuff there. In fairness, I haven't tried the Trader Joe's stuff, but I'm going to get going. So let me know what good ingredients or snacks or something at Trader Joe's I could get. Maybe a little snack for a high day. I do, for Christmas maybe, want to make protein pancakes with sweet potatoes. I saw Mike O'Hearn's channel and his wife Mona make them recently. And he's where I learned a lot of my fitness stuff from. Actually, it's just everything I practice with fitness pretty much learned from him. Like, I'm ashamed I didn't know how to work out or diet right for so many years. And I don't know how I survived eating like literally like eggs and not eggs, rice and beans with like no vegetables for lunch and dinner virtually every day for like a year while I lived in Annandale. And let's get more active, you know, bike, rollerblade, take the bus, take the metro. I think that's fantastic when we can be connected to each other in a city and aren't so isolated in our cars. I made a little YouTube short today talking about this, how I think car commercials are so misleading, and they kind of hint at a truth, though, and a truth which shows what we don't like about driving, which is we don't like traffic. But how do they portray cars in commercials? In scenic vistas, like on the coast, or in some field where there's no other traffic. In other words, ideal driving conditions. Now, what's that tell you? People don't actually like driving their cars a lot of the time, but the commercials portray it as something different. This fantasy, like expression of yourself that's going to provide you with fulfillment. Jesus. What the hell was that? A cat just screamed. And then somebody hit something. All right, that's the alley outside my apartment. There are actually two alleys that intersect here. That's another reason why I want to move to a nicer place, but I want everywhere to be a nicer place. I'd almost rather transform my neighborhood than move somewhere else so everybody here benefits from it. And I'll leave just that screw you, I got mine attitude to the capitalists who just want to enrich themselves at everyone else's expense. But the car commercials, back to those, what it tells you, it tells you a truth in a way, which is that driving is unpleasant, but in order to sell cars, we can't show the actual picture of what it's like to drive. We have to show you something idyllic that doesn't exist in large part. Yes, you can drive with no or few drivers around, but in large part, people are stuck in traffic, and we're conditioning people through marketing to tell themselves that, hey, this is what's cool. This is how things should be. And to me, it's like cigarette commercials. I'm like, you're selling people something that's actually destructive. That's not as cool as it's portrayed as. And it causes significant health problems. With cars, 40,000 dead a year, hundreds of thousands of crashes, injuries, hospitalizations, high rates of asthma, cancer, cardiovascular disease, noise pollution, and just makes it difficult to get around. People are stalled in traffic for hours, and they lose all this time of their life commuting because we're relying on cars too much, and there's so much better ways to get around. Driving should be a good experience, by the way, but the way to do that is to narrow a lot of roads, to create for car-free streets, to give people alternatives to get around. That means trains like metro, buses, bus lanes, bike paths, and sidewalks that people can actually get around on safely and can cross the street conveniently at. I think a good rule I read somewhere is 2 wheelchair users should be able to cross each other on a sidewalk. That's a good assessment for how wide sidewalks should be. It's ridiculous to me and pathetic. Someone walking their dog or pushing a baby stroller cannot pass someone else doing that, or can barely do it. And a lot of streets around LA, you definitely can't, or the sidewalks are broken, and they don't have curb ramps. So if you're in a wheelchair, you have to be able to get out of it to be able to get off the block, or just don't live there. What are we doing? We're just telling people with disabilities, with mobility related disabilities, hey, you just can't live here. This is not a place you can live. And what's got to happen every time? Instead of legislation kicking in to fix this, people have to get together and sue the government to make a change, to improve things, to get their rights accorded to them. So anyways, that's my rant, but let me know grocery items that you like. My writing's going well. I encourage people out there writing or thinking about writing, try it. Try writing whatever. I know now, like, something that's helping me so much with my writing, so I never get stressed while writing, like I'm never like, oh, this sucks, this is bad, is no writing is ever wasted. So by doing that, I kind of take off the restrictions I used to place on myself, or that I could potentially place on myself, to avoid writing things that are outlandish or wild. And it lets my mind wander, and I'll daydream. And every day I don't know how I'm going to figure out these problems in the story. And I'm like, well, of course I don't. If I did, the whole thing would be written. So it's like, this is what it looks like to write a story. And by one day, if I feel like I'm not getting far, I'll try different writing exercises or techniques, writing about this one character in the story, figuring out who they are, writing about their life, writing out alternate scenes, just listing out what are the worst things that can happen for this person here, or what's the worst way to attack them emotionally, or what kind of character would best be able to attack them, or who would they be best to fit in this story world that will completely try and undermine their values and beliefs. And I always figure stuff out. I hate saying that in a way, because it makes it sound like it's just easy or whatever. It sounds like anything other than it is, which is just a process. It doesn't mean it's not a lot of challenging stuff, but I like the challenge. It means, like, I think I'm finding a quicker path to writing my story, whereas before I would spend years barely improving something. Just like improving it, I'd say pushing it, the quality forward by millimeters at a time, and it did improve, and I did learn. Whereas now I'm able to, like, scale so much further to get my story improved. So let me know some cool snack ideas or Christmas recipes, whatever. I'm not a big eater. Like, I can't eat big meals, so even Thanksgiving for me, I was like, I'm stuffed, that's it. Like, just a regular meal. And then I ate too much chocolate babka. But let me know those tips and your questions. And again, if you're thinking about writing, write, or read some novels, read some good stories. Right now I'm trying to go through Complete Sherlock Holmes, Volume 2. Interesting now that I'm well acquainted with the Sherlock Holmes stories after reading Volume 1, which is almost as thick as this. And I'll see what I get out of that. And now watching movies too, that's an important thing too. But again, it has to be a quality movie. Otherwise, I can't. It's just too painful to watch. I cannot watch it. I'll turn it off. And so that's why I'm just loath to go to the theaters much lately. Like, yeah, I may have a great time, but a lot of times it's like I realize, no, I just don't need to see this. And then I feel kind of bad walking out. I don't want the theater employees, you know, thinking I'm unhappy, or the other patrons there to, you know, feel self-conscious, like, oh, that guy didn't like the movie. So I realized, in large part, just watch movies at home. And looking forward to getting to making my own movies. So let me know what you think, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye.